here with CMP Trading, and today is Wednesday, so we will break down the charts on the NQ. I do have the webcam off today. I'm having a little bit of a lazy day, so please excuse me. I'm just going to try and minimize the YouTube chat. There we go. Okay. Wednesday, the 23rd of July, 9:01 EST. And that means it's 1 minute past 2 o'clock for me in the UK. So looking here on the NQ, I'm going to just start tab by tab, and we will do this every morning breakdown, both the daily, weekly, trend, and then we go down to the actual NQ. Okay, for the game plan. So same. The dailies and the weeklies aren't really going to change too much just based on the time frame, but of course the daily is always really important to pay attention to. And then weekly, just for that higher macro point of view, and obviously that's not really going to change for a great deal or for a fair amount of time. Obviously, markets are most of the time long, so bias is typically bullish on most occasions, unless we're in a serious downtrend. But even at that point, you have to go down in order to go up. And that retracement we had on the NQ was a really nice buy, which we was obviously talking about a long time ago, but that was your traditional same anchor new high, and again same anchor new high. So those targets for the long term at some point in time, you know where they are, right? So that is your weekly. Again, I break this down just to kind of show you where we are in terms of the BX. So the momentum ever since we traded the halfway back has been green, so we do have buying momentum on our side, and we do have resistance points where we are. These are negative ones of the ATR bars, and you can see we have kind of 23,556s as that kind of anything above there is pretty much just blue sky breakouts, right? Which, amazing for the long term, which is why we all hopefully have a long term, but even for the day trade point of view, it just means you've got momentum on your side, but at the same time, you don't really have to push it that hard because hopefully your portfolio is at all-time highs. Those levels on the ES, you can see we're pretty much at them as well. You've got that high at about 6,528, which obviously we still have room to the upside. And then on the daily, you can see the ES and the NQ both still red ever since the 10th of July. And ever since then, it has just been quite choppy in terms of the ATRs. If we have a quick look at the ATRs in a second, but in terms of trend for yesterday, you can see both on the ES and the NQ, we did trade traditionals, which traded at around 2 p.m. So I wasn't actually at my desk at 2 p.m., but it looks like the ES traded a traditional at 2 p.m. and completed on the overnight session. The NQ, by the looks of it, did come down to its average true range on the ETH session, which is my custom-made indicator, both the ETH and the RTH. So the ETH is in purple, so this is your average low of the day, and you can see that low got held. And the RTH average low of the day also was held, and that is what set up the traditional. The only reason I didn't take this as a long trade, just purely because you were in a downtrend and you were below the previous day high and also the open price. So it wasn't, and also you were below bias, trend bias was down. So there wasn't anything for me to do, which is fine. This was a failed completion on the RTH session anyway. It did not complete the 23 in that session. We have completed it on the overnight, so it will just be a case of how we open on today's session at 9:30, just to see where we open. Are we at that 23 or below? The ES again looks fairly more has more strength than the NQ. You can see we actually are trending, and we have completed that 62 on the ES. This technically is a 50 traditional into full negative 100s on the overnight. As soon as it traded the 23, it did go into a same anchor new high, and that negative 100 will be above at 6,380. So I will just alert that level just to see if we do get completions up there. And interestingly, the ES is actually pretty much above yesterday's highs and above the open, whereas the NQ is still below yesterday's highs and below the open. So ES is technically stronger in my opinion. And if we just look at the daily time frame for both the ES versus the NQ, the ES is starting to try to turn bullish on the BX starting to, whereas the NQ isn't just yet. It's actually making a lower low, as opposed to the ES is making a higher low on the BX trender. The ES is about to turn green on the momentum as well. So again, ES is slightly stronger, and maybe we get that push into 6.528. So just in case if you do trade the ES versus the NQ, that is one to look at. Maybe I trade the ES today, we will see. One of those trades that you could look for would just be a same anchor new high, and I would look for support down here at yesterday's highs, which would be basically 553s to 554s. Call it this zone here. If we just draw this out, and you can see magnitude for the day would take you up into around 6.395s, 9.4s. And you've obviously got magnitude to the downside as your support as yesterday's RTH low. Looking on the NQ, just in terms of what I have mapped out today, in terms of our magnitude to the upside with our ATR high, our ATR low. Currently, we are above the trend indicator, and that is currently giving us support at overnight lows. If this current traditional that we're in, that has traded multiple times now, this is the extension that we faded, or where price faded into yesterday on the open at that halfway back, which was obviously the high of the open, as you can see here. So high of day. Halfway back traditional traded these double top highs, and that did go all the way to its negative 100. This negative 100 traded, and that was the low of day. That was also the ETH low of day, as I just stated here in purple. And we then got a second retest of the RTH average low of day, and that did hold. And as it held, it then also traded a traditional, which I spoke about a second ago. That never broke the 62. As you can see, if we make these lines thicker, you can see trend was, I would class this as a B trade setup, not an A or an A plus, but a B, just purely because you do have a, this was also a traditional from the week as well. So you can see if we zoom out, this was also a halfway back. So the halfway back held, which is this line here at the 50. This is the halfway back in orange. That held, so that's check mark 1. This was also ETH average low of day, check mark 2. This was also an ATR reversal bar to the upside, check mark 3. And this was also average true range RTH session low, check mark 4. So really, maybe I should have taken this trade. Oh, and also negative 100 completion of the short. So short completion, long initiation. So really, there's 5 confirmations there. So maybe I'm kind of like, I want to say I'm disappointed, but at the same time, I'm not, because I was going in line with my plan in terms of below trend and also below the open price and the RTH. So I probably have about 8 confirmations. If you want to take notes. Negative 100 completion, halfway back higher support, ETH ATR, reversal bar to the upside, traditional, RTH ATR, that's 6. The only 2 we didn't have, sorry, the only 3 we didn't have is trend. We were below trend, so that would be 7. Below the open price, that's 8. Below the RTH, that's 9. And 10 would be, obviously, you've got magnitude to the upside, which of course you would do because you've already traded the low of day. That low of day was signified by this area down here, right? So, yeah, I mean, you had about 7 out of 10, right? So this is kind of like a, you know, maybe I will over the weekend or over the next couple of days kind of do a grading system, right? If these things are in line, such as the levels that I've just mentioned, then this gives me a 7 out of 10. Therefore, maybe I use 70% of my normal size on an A plus trade, right? Something like that. Maybe we go for something like that. So hopefully that was useful and beneficial for anyone this morning. Going into today, I've only really got 2 setups that I would be interested in. And as we always say, let the market show its hands first. And what I mean by that is I have no idea. I never have a clue what level is going to trade first. And I'm completely happy saying that because, again, I know having a trade like the traditional that's set up here, I never know if that's going to trade or go to completions. What I do know is once it does go to completions, i.e. the market shows its hands, I know quite well that a same anchor new low most likely completes, and it did. Therefore, again, I probably know with a high certainty a double top halfway back might get sold into, right? Which it did. Again, you were above trend there, so it was tricky yesterday. But apart from that, that got sold into. So again, you have to have that same mentality, as in this is also a same anchor new low halfway back. So this is an area that you sit on hands and you only trade once you are either to the long side. Sorry, you only trade this to the long side once you have broken above that 61.8. The reason you break above or trade the long side once you break and hold above, because that's kind of telling you trend is breaking. Ideally, if you're going to be short, you want to really see price rejecting the 50 and staying below, since it's the equilibrium and the midpoint of that area. If you're starting to get above into premium, it's probably a case that you're most likely going to be retesting the double top highs, right? So that's kind of how I view this. And I don't just go long at the 61.8. That would be crazy. What I do is I wait for some kind of structure to form. Ideally, we reject the RTH high, we pop that, and then we come back down to do a break and retest. Again, another confirmation inside my 10 other confirmations, right? This would be a real nice break and retest. Then you have potential magnitude. Now, the only thing going against this today so far is that you've only really got from yesterday's highs to the average true range for today 50 points. Now, the RTH session might have a different reading. In fact, it will have a different reading, and hopefully it's higher than that. So if the RTH session is higher, let's say this negative 100, then you do have completions. Maybe you get a trade set up, something like you come down to this 38 of this same anchor new high, and then you start to rally, all right? If that does happen, then I don't care about missing the initial move here. I would rather wait for that to complete, and I would trade a micro extension from this place, this area onwards, which again would line up really nice with these previous resistance turning into support, okay? Previous resistance turning into support, a break and retest, rejection, a fake out on these shorts, stop run above, potential shorts back in, and then this becomes break and retest, and then that adds fuel to the fire to take out stops up here. Fairly straightforward stuff, but a lot going on, so I wanted to break it down this morning. That would be the longs. Obviously, you need to be above the trend. You need to be above areas of interest. If these fail, which again I have no care in the world if they do fail, because again I won't be taking the trades in this area. I will only be taking the trades in this area once we have the confirmation. I'm okay missing 40% of the move if it means that I have greater confirmation, and if that means I have less trade frequency, I don't mind, because again, I'm happy to lose out on 20%, 30%, 40% income if it means that when I'm right very well, and when I'm wrong only a little amount, because I'm taking away the trades where I might have less certainty. So hopefully that's beneficial. In terms of the short side, what would I want to see is I'd want to see the trend break, and that would be basically breaking the 62 of this long. Where is that from? That would be from yesterday's low. And if you break that 62 again, you don't just short at that level. You want to see that confirmation of that break, and ideally, same as yesterday. Once this area that was support yesterday at these lows, once this support at these lows yesterday breaks, you get a break and retest. And you don't even have to necessarily short this bounce here. You can wait for it to break again, and potentially you get something like this, where you get a break and retest of the previous RTH low. So you'd have, again, couple confirmations there. Break of the trend of the 61.8, overnight lows gets broken, break and retest of these. Again, I don't necessarily prefer this. I would prefer to take the long, but if we are going to sell off from this traditional that we are still stuck inside, you have a high, you have a lower high, you potentially have another lower high. If that is going to form, and this is going to be the continued downtrend, then I would then take this kind of setup. Again, then, I have no idea which one of these are going to play out, and I'm happy to say that, but what I will do is have a game plan in terms of if these levels do form, then I have an action plan in terms of to be able to profit on that move again. So that is all I really have today. Long and strong above these areas, most likely consolidation, or just cautiously short below these areas, right? You have to remember BX is on your side for the shorts. I know it's hard to short at all-time highs because it's just one of those things, and I don't always like being short at all-time high, especially when the trend is to the upside. But you have to respect and at least just play your system and be happy with the results, right? So I prefer the longs, but if the shorts do set up, then I will just take them, and the law of large numbers, or should I say, let the law of large numbers do its work, okay? Everyone on YouTube, feel free to click the link in the description below to get the 7-day trial to the Discord, and I will be hopping on there now to share my live screen of my trades throughout the day. Everyone on YouTube is already a member. I will jump on Discord now. So yeah, see you all tomorrow, and everyone on Discord, I'll see you shortly.